England was supposed to cruise through this match, but what we saw on the pitch was a harsh wake-up call that exposes exactly why this team is nowhere near ready to lift the trophy. If you thought this was going to be an easy walk in the park for England, the 90 minutes against a relentless, tactically brilliant DR Congo side proved that reputation means absolutely nothing when your tactical foundation is crumbling. Everyone expected dominance, but instead, we witnessed a masterclass in how to dismantle England's high press, exploit their defensive vulnerabilities, and completely disrupt their attacking rhythm. This wasn't just a minor speed bump, it was a tactical blueprint for every other major nation in this tournament on how to break England down, and if major changes aren't made immediately, the knockout stages will turn into an absolute disaster. Right from the opening whistle, it became glaringly obvious that England's midfield balance is fundamentally broken. When you look at the sheer amount of world-class talent available, it feels almost impossible that a team could look this disconnected, yet DR Congo found massive pockets of space between England's defensive line and their midfield anchors. The transition from attack to defense looked sluggish, almost as if England assumed they could simply show up and win on individual talent alone. But international football at this level punishes arrogance instantly. DR Congo didn't just sit back in a low block and hope for a lucky counterattack, they actively pressed England's ball carriers, forced rushed decisions, and exposed a massive lack of mobility in transition. Every single time the ball was turned over in the middle third, England looked panicked, scrambling backward while their opponents flooded the channels with pace and power. It raises a massive question that we need to answer right now. Is England's tactical system holding these players back, or are the players failing to execute the basic principles of modern, high-intensity football? The warning signs were there early on, but what makes this performance truly alarming is how England failed to adapt as the match progressed. When a physical, well-organized team suffocates your creative outlets, you have to find a backup plan, but England kept forcing the ball through a congested central area, playing right into DR Congo's hands. The wingers looked completely isolated, starved of service, and forced to drop incredibly deep just to get a touch of the ball, which completely neutralized their threat in the final third. When you take away England's ability to stretch the pitch, you make them predictable, and predictability is death in tournament football. DR Congo's defensive discipline was admirable, but England made it incredibly easy for them by moving the ball at a testimonial pace, lacking the sharp, one-touch passing required to break through a compact defensive shape. But it gets even more concerning when we look closely at the defensive line, because this is where the real structural damage was done. England has struggled with consistency at the back, but against DR Congo, the lack of communication and positional awareness was genuinely shocking. Long balls over the top, which should be routine for elite defenders to handle, suddenly looked like existential threats. The space left behind the fullbacks was consistently targeted, and England's centre-backs were repeatedly pulled out of position, leaving massive gaps in the penalty area. If a clinical, elite-tier striker from one of the traditional European or South American powerhouses had been on the receiving end of some of those chances, England would have been buried by halftime. This brings us to a massive realization that every England fan needs to accept before the next round, because what happens next will decide the fate of this entire tournament run. To understand how to fix this, we have to look at the lack of intensity off the ball. Modern football demands that even your most creative, star-studded attackers put in the defensive work to win the ball back high up the pitch. Against DR Congo, England's press was completely disjointed. One player would trigger a run while the rest of the midfield remained static, allowing DR Congo to easily bypass the first wave of pressure with simple, vertical passes. Once that first line was broken, England's defensive midfielders were left completely exposed, forced to defend in massive amounts of open space against tracking runners. It looked completely disorganized, lacking the cohesive, well-drilled synchronization that defines winning teams. You cannot win a major tournament with a broken press, and right now, England looks like a collection of brilliant individuals rather than a unified tactical machine. So, what are the big lessons that must be learned immediately before the next stage begins? First and foremost, the coaching staff has to find a definitive solution for the midfield balance, ensuring that the team can progress the ball quickly without leaving the backline completely unprotected. Second, the tactical rigidity has to go. There needs to be a dynamic plan B when the primary creative routes are blocked. Finally, the defensive line cannot continue to play with such a lack of urgency and synchronization, because the margins for error are about to become razor thin. This match against DR Congo was a massive, flashing red warning light, but it can also be the catalyst for the wake-up call this squad desperately needed. There is still time to correct these mistakes, but the luxury of experimentation is officially over. If you want to stay updated on all the latest tactical breakdowns, breaking sports news, and deep dives into tournament football, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now, leave a like on this video to help us grow, and drop a comment below letting me know if you think England can actually fix these massive issues before it is too late.